I'll start with saying that many who still say BDS is effective, not so effective, it's largely symbolic. This is so 2 years ago. And we've moved well beyond that. In 2015, there should be no doubt that we're talking about an effective movement. Hillary Clinton thinks so, Adelson, Netanyahu, and the entire Israeli establishment think so, and we have no reason to doubt their assessment of the impact of BDS. In fact, Congress, a subcommittee of Congress, has just had a hearing on the impact of BDS. So it has reached that level. So BDS is having an impact and is considered a, quote, strategic threat to Israel's entire regime of occupation, settler colonialism, and apartheid. With BDS becoming an issue in the US presidential elections, it's important to go back to what is BDS. What is it calling for, what it's not calling for. In the midst of all the propaganda that you get, especially in the United States, but in the rest of the world as well. The BDS movement started with the BDS call, the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions call, which was issued by the absolute majority in Palestinian civil society in 2005. And by the absolute majority, we mean just about every major organization representing Palestinians, just about everywhere. From trade unions to political parties, women's unions, social movements, farmers, students, academics, writers, and so on and so forth. So what did BDS call for? What does the BDS call state? You can look at BDS as two parts, the rights part and the actions to achieve those rights. The three rights stated in the BDS call are ending the occupation of 1967, including the colonies, the wall, and so on. And occupied territories, we mean all Arab occupied territories, including the Golan Heights, including East Jerusalem, 1967 occupied territory. Number two, ending Israel's system of racial discrimination, which meets the United Nations definition of apartheid, even in Israel itself. And I'll explain a bit about that. And number three, the right of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and lands from which they were expelled in 1948 during the Nakba, and since the Nakba, the expulsion has never stopped. The call for the academic and cultural boycott came out in 2004, a year before the general BDS call. And it wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't because Palestinians are crazy about shooting themselves in the foot. It's because we realize that extremely important, pernicious role, especially academic institutions in Israel, have played since 1948 in maintaining, planning, and implementing and whitewashing Israel's system of oppression and violation of international law. And it's much more than any other state in the world, including the United States. Because Israel always makes the argument, well, look at MIT and the Pentagon. Pentagon is funding half the universities in the US and blah, blah, blah. But even Israeli academics have come up with a counter-argument to that, not because they're trying to, but they give us a counter-argument to that. And they say, unlike in the US, the Pentagon and the universities are two separate entities that cooperate. In Israel, they're not separate. They're one and the same. And I can refer you to a document where a very important academic at the INSS, International National Security Studies, Institute for National Security Studies at Tel Aviv University, the most important in Israel. They say, in Israel, we're one and the same. Each one of us is a general and an academic and involved in the military industries. And it's one nice family in Israel. They're not separate entities that have to forge partnerships and relations. It's very much organically integrated in Israel, which is very distinct from any other country in the world. No other country compares to Israel as far as the integration of the military and the academy.
So what is the academic boycott?
So the academic and cultural boycott called for an institutional boycott, which means a boycott against all Israeli academic and cultural institutions, not individuals. That's the key difference from the South African boycott, which was a blanket boycott against every single academic, every single artist, as well as an institution in South Africa during apartheid. The Palestinian call is strictly institutional. We do not endorse a boycott of individuals. We do not call for a boycott of Israeli institutions based on their identity, but based on their actual complicity in Israel's violation of international law, period. That's the only reason why we call for a boycott against those institutions, not because of their identity.
How do you boycott the institution?
There are many ways, depending. If it's an academic institution, for example, we call for all academics, as well as academic institutions around the world, not to deal with this institution, not to have joint research with the institution, not with individual academics, but with the institution as such. Exchange programs, joint partnerships, all kinds of academic association agreements with Israeli institutions, we call for separate. Similarly with cultural institutions, but that's a simpler case. But let's talk about the academic. The most important argument that comes up in the academic boycott discussion is academic freedom. Is the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, in effect, regardless of intention, in effect suppressing academic freedom by calling for a boycott of Israeli academic institutions? We've written a lot. Quite a few American academics have written a lot to counter that argument. And it's really a very, very, very shaky argument. It has very little logic to it. We call for a boycott of institutions, not of individuals. Academic freedom, again, Americans don't think much of international law. They like to define everything on their own. Academic freedom is defined by international. In the UN system, there's a definition actually of academic freedom, which we resort to, and the rest of the world, minus the US, resorts to. Basically, as an academic, you have a right to pursue your academic activities such as writing, researching, teaching, publishing, attending conferences, and so on, without political influence, that's, in a nutshell, the definition of academic freedom. Nothing in what we're calling for would infringe on that. Israeli academics can still teach and publish and travel and participate and do joint research with academics internationally without any influence from the boycott movement. What we call for is severing institutional links with their institutions. So, for example, a concrete example. If Harvard were to have a joint, an exchange program with Tel Aviv University, we would call for boycotting it. If, however, a Harvard department invited an Israeli anthropologist to teach a course, there's nothing that prevents her in the academic boycott call from teaching that course, as long as there's no institutional link with her university.